Welcome to Roll the Tape, where we dive into the stories, the legacy, and the evolution of beach and grass volleyball in the Midwest. From past legends to future stars, game footage, and deep conversation, we're here to grow the game, to build community, and keep the passion alive. Our guest today is Mitch Sadowsky, a professional strength coach with Aretas Physical Therapy and Performance. He's the head coach of our Rise and Grind fitness boot camps here at Bradford Beach, and he's an exceptional volleyball player and coach for many years who grew up just down the street in Whitefish Bay. Hello, Mitch. Thank you for being here, and welcome to Roll the Tape.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here. There's a lot of synchronicity being here. Obviously, you coached at Whitefish Bay for a year, my alma mater, and I remember I got into volleyball because I was just trying to stay in shape for other sports and realized that I was pretty good at it. And one of my coaches at the time said, you know, if you really want to get good at volleyball, you need to go play beach. Go down to Bradford. And
smart
from that time, I mean, you look at the way things have grown down here, what you've done, and the Gronskys have done to grow it, and how you've taken that torch and just grew it even more. It's incredible. We had one court right by the pavilion, and it was 2 metal poles. It was an old crappy net. And we would come down here every morning and just get our brains beaten in for hours. Like, we would come down, I had to be the first one down here to try to get more than 3 games a day. Because as soon as you lost, you were off. It was big court, old school scoring, games to 11, and if you lost, you're bounced. And there are a lot of lessons.
How long were you waiting?
A good couple hours.
Yeah.
A good couple hours. And when you're first growing up playing, you know, your games go pretty quick. You get beaten by some of the older guys, so you know your games might take 20 minutes and then you're sitting around for 3 hours. So you know, a game ends and everyone jumps on the court. We all do hitting lines. We all try to hone our game there and just improve where we can, and then try to take those lessons that we learned and put them in at the next time. So we would get here about 7:30, hopefully get it a game or two, and then as everyone started to filter in, you know, you might get one more a few hours later, and then you know, as everyone started to dwindle out, you stayed as long as you could to get those last few games in. And you know, there's so many good lessons to learn and from that experience that, you know, I still remember the first time I won down here. And I think it took me like 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Coming down as a 15-year-old. And then, you know, I remember getting my first win when I was like 16 or 17 after that. And it just felt so good. It was just an accumulation of all those reps. Coming down during the summer was awesome. So to be down here now to see where everything is and to come back and help prepare the next generation of volleyball players as a strength coach and pass down some volleyball knowledge and how to prepare our bodies for this, it's super cool.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you here. Like you said, this has been an evolution. I remember playing on that court. We had more than just that one, but that was kind of like the legacy court. With those red poles, and unfortunately we don't have them anymore. Big storm in 2020 washed them out to lake, but we have 37 courts now for this season, including a private lesson court right in front of us that we're going to be doing clinics and private lessons on all summer. And we've got over 100 teams almost every night of the week playing in leagues. So you know, the community is thriving, but it's always exciting to look for opportunities to give more back to it. And I think working with you gives us that opportunity because we've got somebody who's super experienced in a lot of different realms that is going to help take athletes to next levels, you know.
Yeah, I think once you finish playing, and I'm not sure anyone's ever really done playing volleyball. There's still a little bit. There's always a little bit left, to coin a phrase from a colleague and a friend of mine. There's always a little something left in the basement, and you want to make sure you get that basement cleared out or clutter every once in a while. But you know, going through post college and into a professional life and continuing to play at a high level on the beach, learning how to prepare my body was. It was more important for me to do that than it was to actually play. I wanted to make sure that Monday through Friday I had all my preparatory boxes checked off, getting lifts in, getting training in on the beach, making sure I was properly conditioned, making sure that I could hold up for those long weekend tournaments where, you know, you're up and down, and then, you know, you might get 2 games in or 2 matches in a couple hours, and then all of a sudden you're back to back to back. So being able to prepare your body to hold up to that, and being in many different environments, being in Utah to do it and having to do it at altitude, and then being in Florida and having to do it during, it's so hot and so humid. You're always trying to figure out the best way to train and prepare your body, and to help people do that so that they can play as much volleyball as possible down here in the summer where we have to condense our season. It's super important, but it's super enjoyable for me. I think it's the part of being a coach and being a volleyball player that never leaves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always something more to grind, something more to squeeze out. It's just it's a sport that has so much joy in it, so much personal challenge. So yeah, I'm definitely addicted to the work of it. 3 knee surgeries later, I'm still out here trying to get back and play. So, Mitch, I want to go back a little bit to kind of trace a little bit of your career and figure out how you got to this point. So you started at Whitefish Bay, and then you played at Ball State University in Indiana. It's it's a big time program, a lot of history there. Can you explain or tell us a little bit about what your time was like there?
It was amazing. I had such a good experience there, and growing up playing at Bay and then playing for now MVC, North Shore Milwaukee Volleyball Club back then, we had a really good group of older guys to look up to. So I think from basically my sophomore year, having been coached by, they'll laugh when I say this, but like Whitefish Bay legends for volleyball, like Jim Plaisted, Dan Jacobson, Mike Freed, who were my first few coaches at Bay. Obviously John Simon, who this weekend is getting inducted to the Tosa East Hall of Fame. That was my first varsity volleyball coach. And the guys who started North Shore Milwaukee Volleyball Club, growing up, and watching the top players from Wisconsin, a lot of them went to Ball State. So, Scott Oath, Todd Reimer, Greg Romano, Eric Sullivan, who I played with for a few years. Yeah. And then before that was Bob DiDonato from Bay and Mike Freed from Bay and a few other guys from Whitefish Bay. I kind of always knew that Ball State was going to be along my path. And then, my senior year, I had some opportunities with the USA national team, youth level, and started to get a little bit recruited for some other schools, but I just kind of knew deep down that Ball State was the place to be. And I remember going to an Olympic Fest tryout, and the same guys were there, and we were playing against the guys who were at Fort Wayne. So we were playing against Norman Almodovar and Raul Papaleo and Lloyd Ball, who and Tom Hoff at Long Beach. So I remember playing against all those guys and thinking, I want to beat those guys. Right. I want to go to Ball State. I want to be with Todd and Scott and Greg, and that's the path where I want to go. But we also had to look up to guys that like Jeff Nygaard and Tom Sorensen to that was the measuring stick back then of if you're going to go out west, you needed to be a future Olympian, and that was the level. And we were always trying to get to that level and beat them. And so for Ball State to be on my path was an incredible opportunity. And once I got there, it was we had one mission, and that was national championship. Get to the Final Four, and then let's go beat those California guys.
Absolutely. The what do you guys call the arena that you play in? I've heard different names for it.
It was the it was just Worthen Arena.
Is it the one that has the tall, almost like a cross shape, huge ceilings?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was it was Worthen Arena. I don't know if it's still called that.
I guess I meant if you had a nickname or something for it.
No, they call it the Nest now because we're the Cardinals.
Okay. That makes sense.
They referred to it the Nest, but we used to practice in University Gym, which was the old gym that basketball and volleyball would play in before the arena was built. And they built the arena early 90s. I remember going to the 92 national championship, and I think that was one of the big inaugural events that was there. And we actually went down as a club to watch because Tom Sorensen was playing for Pepperdine at the time, and I remember watching them in the national championship game. We were rooting our heads off because we wanted a Wisconsin guy to win a national championship. True. And so but we always looked forward to playing in the arena. We never got a chance to practice very much because basketball had it. But Yeah, it was always special playing in there. I remember, teams coming in there because we had one of the bigger arenas for men's volleyball in the Midwest at that point. And so teams would come in and we'd be kicking sky balls and launching deep serves and just having a good time in there.
Yeah, I guess for those of you who haven't been or haven't seen it, it's this giant vertical space that has this, almost like a cross shape at the top. When I played at Rutgers, we went out to Ball State and played a match there. We called it the spaceship because looking at it, it doesn't even look like something that belongs on Earth, And it's true, like you cannot hit a ball into the ceiling. Like you couldn't punt one into it.
You tried.
You can't throw one. Yeah, it's quite a unique place to play. And it's kind of cool because it's not that far from here. So you can probably drive down to Muncie in 2.5, 3 hours.
A little bit longer. It depends on who's driving and what time of day.
Yeah,
but
right. Chicago
I've made it.
Is an
I've
obstacle.
made it in as little as 4 hours and 45 minutes, and I've also driven back in as long as 7.
Okay. Well, I guess it's a little bit of a trip, but it's definitely worth it.
Chicago's always the X factor. You got to time the traffic there well.
But worth a trip to go down there. After college, you had a little bit of involvement with Team USA. What did that look like?
So right after college, I actually moved home. I got an invite to go back to grad school, coached at Ball State. And then right after I finished grad school, I got a call to go play in the Maccabi Games for Team USA.
Okay.
So
what
we
is
went
that?
over. So the Maccabi Games are essentially the Olympics for Jewish athletes over in Israel. So there are different Maccabi Games in the U.S. where state teams will compete against each other.
Sure.
But I was able to go represent Team USA with the team at a really difficult time. There were some terrorist bombings that had just started kicking up right before the game started off. And so there was some question whether Team USA was going to send a delegation. In my mind, there was never a question. We're going. Mm-hmm. For Team USA and the head of sport for our delegation did a wonderful job with Maccabi to ensure there were safe games with no incidents. And we had an awesome time. We unfortunately lost to Israel in the gold medal match, but it was really cool being around so many athletes from around the world that were not only Jewish but shared the same passions we did. Right. And there's reminders all over about some of what happens politically in the area, and also just how beautiful the country is. And so we had an amazing time, and made a lot of lifelong friends. I'm still friends with all my teammates from back then, friends with some of the athletes from other sports that were there. And then when we finished up, we came home and decided to get on with life.
Sure. So
a little bit.
Yeah. At some point, I know you transitioned into coaching. Was there other playing between then, or was it just?
I played a lot on the beach. I played indoor at adult nationals once a year. That was about enough for my body to handle indoor.
Especially if you're not doing it consistently. That's a big
consistently.
That's a big hit on the knees.
But I played really competitively on the beach series. It was in Salt Lake City when I lived out there. I played in a lot of the stuff out in California when I was out there, some AVP qualifiers and just some local tournaments, some double A's. And then when I got to Florida, played on the Dig the Beach series pretty competitively and pretty regularly for, as long as I was in Florida.
Okay. I saw that you were an assistant at Florida State and Georgetown. What was kind of like your role there, and how does that kind of continue to shape your understanding of the game?
So when I was in California, I was in the inland umpire in San Bernardino and working for a minor league baseball team, and still wanted to coach. So I coached at a small high school there. And when I was in Utah, I continued to coach while I played, and I got introduced to Gold Medal Squared, which was Chris McGowan, Carl McGowan's camp company and clinics. And, I just was looking for some extra cash during the summer. And they said, well, why don't you come coach with us?
Yeah.
And at the time, I had a group of volleyball playing friends up in Salt Lake City where I lived, and then I would also go down to BYU and play beach with all the BYU guys. So I was just playing and training nonstop. And, figured, well, during the week I can still train. I might as well go do some camps. So I started doing camps for them, and 21 years later, still doing camps with them. But along with that, when I left Utah, I had an opportunity to go coach at Georgetown. So I moved to DC and was the assistant coach there, and was there for 2 seasons, then left to go to Florida State.
Yeah.
And was there for two seasons as well. And I think you learn, there's a lot of evolution. There's obviously a difference between coaching camps and coaching.
Right.
But it's what led me to become a strength coach. I noticed that as much talent as we had coming into those programs, I felt we could do a better job physically preparing our kids for the college environment.
Sure.
There's nothing that's gonna even the playing field from a 17 or 18-year-old college freshman to a 21-year-old senior.
Right.
But I felt like at the time we could do better in producing what I would call physical literacy, like understanding how you move, understanding like what are your feet doing, why would something specific happen, and try to get the athlete to work backwards through their movement to see, why did this result happen? Why did I shank a ball? Why did I get a kill? Why did I have a positive outcome? Why was there a negative outcome? So that they could process that information quicker and then react quicker. I can't coach as quickly as the ball can.
Yeah, of course.
So what I want to do is teach our athletes that there's a movement associated with a positive and a negative outcome. If we can think more critically about what did that movement feel like, and was I able to get a positive or negative result, we can get those kids to respond quicker and correct quicker. I don't want, when I'm coaching, I don't want an athlete asking me why something happened.
Right.
I wanted that to happen in practice where, let's understand, like, why did the ball go to the left when our target's to the right? Why did we overpass? Why did you miss that serve? Why did all of these things happen? I want them to know right away so that they can fix it right away.
Yeah, so they have problem-solving skills rather than looking for somebody else to fix their problems for them.
Yeah. I mean, we refer to it as opportunities to respond.
Yeah.
If you shank a pass, you're going to have an immediate opportunity to respond because we are serving you the very next ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that. I mean, on the beach, there's nowhere to hide. So you've got to fix your stuff really, really quickly. If you're not a great passer, you're going to get served a lot. If you're not a great setter, your partner's going to get served a lot. If somebody knows that your physical conditioning isn't where we want it to be, we're going to work you to death.
Yeah, you're going to get served short a lot.
Yeah, we're going to get served short a lot. As a blocker, you better be in good shape to get up and back to the net off your serve. So we wanted to help our players understand those things and then get them to learn, like, there's reasons why things happen. And
so that interest in strength coaching kind of came out of your like a desire to help your athletes become more competitive in their conference, in their division, etc.
Yeah.
Was that something that you had as like a passion as a player yourself, and you kind of started seeing an application for it?
Yeah.
Or is that just something that came out of your coaching?
My freshman year at Ball State, some of the guys from the Human Performance Lab came in to do a sprint study with us during our fall season. So they wanted to see would sprint mechanics and just working on sprint mechanics help our vertical jump?
Yeah. Which
I think it was pretty interesting. And one of the researchers on that project happened to work in our Human Performance Lab. And Ball State's Human Performance Lab is one of the top in the country. They've got a lot of different contracts, one with NASA, and some really high-level researchers.
Sure.
And so we got, we went through the sprint program. I couldn't tell you if my vertical went up or stayed the same or what it was. I couldn't even tell you what the outcomes of the study was. I think everybody's vert went up varying degrees.
Yeah.
But really where my curiosity was piqued was in the weight room. I worked my butt off in the weight room. I wanted to be the strongest. I wanted to jump the highest. And I wanted to know, why could I squat so much? But there are guys who never spent a minute in the weight room who had verticals that were 5 inches higher than mine. Like, why was I working so hard and not getting the same outcomes? Right. So I just thinking, like, what's next? Where do I go? I go to the Human Performance Lab, and I said, I want to know why. So we started working on force plates. We started working on understanding how the muscles contract and the stretch shorten reflex and how vertical jump gets produced through different players. That actually led to, I think it was our junior year, we actually did a force plate study through a Human Performance Lab. And that led me to spending more time in the lab during my summers at Ball State than the weight room. And I was still in the weight room, but I would go into the lab and we would put forth better or different strength training programs than what our strength coaches were doing that were a little bit more applicable to me. And then I came back from Thanksgiving my junior year, sophomore, junior year, and jump touched 4 inches higher than I ever have. Yeah. And, from then on, it maintained that level. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. So we went back into the lab and tried to figure it out. And all that time, I should have been studying exercise science, and I was on a business path. But that's what got me down this path, coming from Florida State, is I wanted to know how to better prepare our athletes. So I spent a lot of time taking my own workouts to our strength coaches and said, hey, here's what we would like from our players. Here are the ideal qualities that we would like. How do we put these things together for them? Because I wanted to work with them, not come say, well, I'm a volleyball coach, I know more about strength training than you do. I'm like, how do we work together to get these outcomes for our kids? Right. And then once I realized that this is something that I really enjoyed, both of them were something I really enjoyed, I just kind of transitioned out of the technical side and the sports side into the physical preparation side.
Yeah, so then you're doing more strength training and you start branching out outside of just volleyball, right? I know nowadays most of your calendar is booked with golfing. I see in the clinic there's a lot of golfers coming in, all ages, looking for help. How did your interest take you into that realm?
So completely by accident. When I left Florida State, I moved down to Orlando and decided that I wasn't done coaching, I was done college coaching, or at least I was done for a little bit, and I wanted to give training a shot. And so, I kind of immersed myself in training, but I was going to coach at a high school. And one of my players from our high school, her dad owned a gym. So I was doing some private lessons with her, and I started talking to him. We started talking about movement patterns and strength and what I was doing. He goes, well, why don't you come train at my gym? So, all right, cool, that'd be great. And so I started training at his gym, and I couldn't tell you how long, a few months after that, I think, he said, hey, we're going to be moving to the Bahamas. And I was really upset at the time because he was taking away my starting right side at our high school. But he said, continue to train here. Anything you need, let me know. I'll be back and forth a little bit. Well, a few months after that, he calls me up and says, hey, Lake Nona Country Club's going to be hiring a trainer. They've got one name, one resume. I work with a lot of guys who are high up in Tavistock. If you want the job, it's yours. Okay. So I took a deep breath. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Like I'm done with, I'll coach on the side, but this is where I want my life to be. And from there, we had a number of PGA Tour players that lived at Lake Nona, one of whom used to work with Mike Tormey, whose gym I was training at. He called me up and said, hey, I need you to work with Ian Poulter, who was one of the top guys on the PGA at the time. And I said, yeah, okay. Definitely. And as soon as I started working with him and a couple other people, I said, well, I better figure this golf thing out. And then the more I got into golf, it's funny, the more I realized that training golfers is really the same as training volleyball players. We need to rotate. We need to create force through the ground. We need really good shoulder stability. We need really good trunk stability. We need to have the ability to both rotate and resist rotation. It's just where we operate is a little bit different. But we still have really good correlations between vertical force off the ground and vertical jump. There's also a really high correlation between ground reaction force and a golf swing, vertical jump, and club head speed. Yeah. So some of the top guys on tour with club head speed actually have really high verticals. And we test that in TPI, which is Titleist Performance Institute. In our power testing, we test vertical jump, broad jump, single arm press, single arm pull, and seated chest pass, sit up and throw, which is all the things that we tested when you guys came in, because they're all very ubiquitous qualities. Can you create force? Can you break under force?
Yeah.
And how much force can you create?
I think that comes down to just general athleticism, right? I mean, I'm sure you were like this as well, but just about every sport I ever did was like, yeah, I can, you know, I'm not an expert. I don't have the skill set. My footwork in basketball is terrible, but like I was usually one of the best athletes on the gym, willing to run up and down the court. You know, like I think that applies. You see a lot of elite athletes in any sport. There's always talk, oh, LeBron James could have been a wide receiver. It's like, well, yeah, he probably could have been. You know, football players could be elite sprinters. Yeah, probably. You know, there's just so much. If you play a lot of sports growing up, or you're always active, you kind of get those. What do they call them? Like mimicry neurons. You kind of see somebody do it, and then you can go out and do it yourself. And then when you combine that with the strength approach, actually learning those movement patterns under stress, building power, building strength, explosiveness, then yeah, I can definitely see how that would translate from volleyball into golf.
Yeah, I was never supposed to be a volleyball player. Volleyball found me.
Yeah.
I played, my two main sports were baseball and basketball. It's all I wanted to do, and I was going to play football to get in shape for those. And then I had a pretty serious injury in 8th grade, and my mom wouldn't let me play football anymore.
Smart.
And so it was either volleyball or cross country. I'm like, I'm not running.
Yeah.
So I went out for volleyball. I missed tryouts. I walked into the gym 2 weeks after tryouts. John Simon, who I mentioned earlier, saw me, and I'm like, hey, I'm here for tryouts. And he goes, we had tryouts 2 weeks ago. We already have our teams. And I was like, all right. So I started to walk away. He goes, wait a minute, how old are you? I said, 14. I'm a freshman. He goes, how tall are you? I said, 6'1". He goes, you're on the team. Find a ball and have somebody show you how to play. Yeah. And that was it. I found one of the kids that I knew, and he taught me some pretty horrible habits, but I fell in love with volleyball.
Yeah.
And it all happened completely by accident. And I couldn't have asked for a better accident. It for sure changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah. I don't know if that would have worked for me. I was 5'7", like 140 my freshman year of high school.
You actually weighed more than I did, and I was about a foot and a half tall, or half a foot taller than you.
I did grow up playing though, so I knew I had some skills, but just was a tiny guy. But yeah, okay. Well, so we're here now.
Yeah.
Bradford, you're back in Milwaukee. When did you come back to Milwaukee? A couple years ago?
Almost exactly 2 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. How's it treating you so far?
Amazing.
That's good.
I love being back. We came back for our kids, primarily to be closer to family and my parents, but I met our clinic owners about 10 years ago, actually through a common golf colleague.
Yeah.
And we started chit-chatting about everybody that we knew in common in the volleyball world, because if everybody knows, the volleyball world is about that big, and we all know each other. We're 1 degree away. I mean, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. No, there's no such thing as that. It's like we are one person removed. Yeah. So we started talking about a number of different things that I wanted to advance in my career professionally. I was starting to get an idea of where I wanted my future to go in terms of strength training. Mm-hmm. And Nate and I were talking a lot about that, and obviously both of us having volleyball backgrounds and being from Milwaukee, it was a no-brainer. Like, we got to figure out a way to work together. Yeah. And that morphed into coming up to do a couple of golf fitness talks, to we need to do a better job preparing our athletes. And then that was, well, what are you guys doing with PT patients once they're finished with PT? Yeah. And the answer was nothing. And I said, well, I think we have a problem, and I might have a solution. Yeah. So let's figure out a way to make it work. And then we came up 3 years ago to see some family, and then I just turned and looked at my wife, and I was out to dinner with my best friend, and his wife had already known my wife from college. They both played volleyball at OU, and we ran into some friends at dinner, and then we were just out, and we happened to be at the same place that Nate Horning, the owner of Aretas Physical Therapy, was at. I remember turning to look at my wife and going, it's time. Let's come home. And we had kicked around the idea, but nothing seriously. And she said, are you serious? I said, let's do it. So I met Nate, so we'll be up by September 1. We just had to wait for her job, and we were up here in July.
Yeah, the lake called you back.
The lake called me back. Volleyball called me back.
That's cool. Okay, so now we have, we got you, we got Aretas behind you.
Yep.
We got Volley Life University, and we're putting that together. It's kind of the same way that you and Nate built your relationship together. That's kind of how we fell in together. Just I'd been rehabbing with Kevin out at the Hills Corners location, and met Nate through requesting, hey, we have a tournament. Can you bring some athletic trainers to come to the tournament? And then Nate was like, yeah, I'm totally down. My son plays, and I'm certified, all this and stuff. And then it just, like you said, one degree of separation. It just keeps going from there. So we had all this kind of legacy and history in and around the sport. Know a lot of the same people. We were at Chris Hayworth's 50th birthday party recently, and there were, like multiple generations of people playing volleyball.
And Jim Playstead was there, who started MVC, and his son Ben plays with you. And I mean, I have known Ben and Aaron since before Jim and his wife got married and had Ben and Aaron. So I mean, not only do I know them, but I know why they have the names that they do.
Yeah.
And so being able to go down through that and connect all of our communities is really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rise and Grind classes 7 to 8 Tuesdays and Thursdays. Our first class is May 29th, so you can register online. Mitch, what can people expect at these classes?
We're gonna get sandy. A lot of it is it's a lot of the stuff that I did when I was still playing very competitively on the beach. I have all my workouts that we would come down and do, and I think, for me, morning was the best time to come down and get that work in, so that we could do that, we could train. So a lot of the drills will also look like skills, and getting people to at least get their body into a position where they're comfortable getting on the sand. I know one of the things I said to you when I first got here was, man, it has been so long since I walked that far in sand, you forget what it feels like. And so, we want to get people acclimated so that they're not just jumping into the sand and trying to compete right away. We want to get their bodies ready to compete.
And it's not just for elite, sand doubles players. This is for anybody that wants to get a great workout in. Like we talked about earlier, building general athleticism is going to help you, not just in sports, but you're going to feel better, especially getting that early morning workout. Take advantage of the sun, take advantage of the beach. And if you're one of those Sixes players playing way down on court 35, 36, it's a long walk, so you might as well be ready for it. All right, Mitch, I'm super excited to work with you.
Same.
I'm glad you came out and did the podcast with us. Again, roll the tape. We're all about sharing stories and building community, and we hope to see you out there with us at the Rise and Grind Fitness Sessions starting May 29th. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. See you all soon. And I'm going to give him some perturbations in this. I'm going to try to pull that band away from him. But we'll do this for time. We'll do this from anywhere from 30 to 40 seconds. How's our core doing, Tomas?
Cake.